We begin the Gemara today on Daf Samach Beis, Amud Beis, towards the bottom of the Amud, actually 10 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where it says Shemidas Tashlume Kefil Neheges Chulu. So in the Mishnah, it said that the halacha of a ganav that has to pay back double, Kefil, is not only regarding animals, living beings, the way the halacha is benegeh to the payment of Bava Kama when you steal and then you slaughter or sell, and then you have to pay 4 or 5 times as much, and that applies only regarding a living animal that you stole. But by kefil, it applies to everything, any object that you steal. So the Gemara here will bring the source for this. Talk to Gemara again. Shemidas tashlum kefil hages cholu. Mina amili. What's the source for this? So the Tana Rabbanan. So we learned in the Braise that says in the pasuk al kol dvar pesha. So the pasuk says, and as the Gemara will soon explain, this pasuk here is referring to Geneva, even though it's actually not referring to actual Geneva. What it's referring to is a shomer that has the object in his possession, and he's stealing it by claiming that he doesn't have it, and then he keeps it for himself. But it's the same halacha as Geneva, as the Gemara will later explain. So in this pasuk, it says a klal, prat, o klal. First it says a kol dvar pesha, that we're talking about any object you have in your possession that you're negligent with. And then the pasuk specifies a bunch of details. Al shoyer, al chamoyer, if it's an ox or a donkey, al seh, a sheep, al salma, or a garment. So that's prat, that's a bunch of details the pasuk is saying. And then it continues to say, al kol aveda, anything that you were guarding and it got lost. Chazav v'kolal. Now it says a klal again. So how do we darshan this? So we have the way that we darshan of klal, or prat to klal. The Torah first says it in a generality, and then it says a detail, and then it says again a klal. How do we understand this? On one hand, if the Torah would mean just a klal, it wouldn't say the prat. On the other hand, if it would mean only the prat, it wouldn't say a klal again. So what we say is, prat. That what the Torah is saying is that only things that have a similarity in nature to this prat, to the detail specified, that's what's included. So we include more than the prat itself, but it has to be something which is similar to the prat. So what is the similarity here to the prat? Which will end up excluding certain things that are not similar. Ma prat meforish dover metaltal, just like the details mentioned in the pasuk are movable items, number one, and number two, the gufay mamein, and it's something that it itself has a value of money. Of course, so too, what we're comparing here is anything that's dover metaltal, it's something which is a movable item, the gufay mamein, and it has a value of money in itself. What would this exclude? Yatsu karkois. So number one, this excludes pieces of land. If a person steals a piece of land, she'enan metaltalin, it's not a movable item. So if a person steals a piece of land, how would a person do that? So Taisus over here says whether a person moves the border and he just extends his territory into his friend's territory, or over here, since the pasuk's talking about a shomer, the case would be if someone gives over for you the shmira of his vineyard, for example, and you just go and take off grapes and eat it for yourself. That's also called a geneva of karka, even though once you tear off the grapes, now it becomes metaltal, but when you get it as a shmira, so you get it, grapes attached to the ground, that's considered to be karka. Okay, that's the examples Taisus brings here. So that's one thing that we exclude, that regarding this, there's no halacha of paying kefil. And another example is Yotza Avodim, Shok Shula Karkais, also slaves. If a person steals someone's slave, which in Torah is always compared to Karka, psukim for this, Rashi brings, Visnachalta Maisam, that it's a nachla, like a piece of land. And also Yotza Shtaris. We also exclude documents of a loan or valuable documents, that if you steal this, Shaval Pisha Metaltlin, so these documents are obviously movable, but ain't gufo mammon. It's not something that has value itself. It's something that has information in which you can collect money with it. So in all these cases, you don't pay kefil, that is. Now there's another thing that Bryce here adds, that we also exclude from paying kefil, even though it's not from this klal prat klal, but it's from what it says there earlier in the pasuk. Yatsa hektish, we also exclude hektish for paying kefil, because re'eyu ksiv. The pasuk over here says the word re'eyu, yishalem shnayim lire'eyu, so that's only to a friend, not to hektish. Okay, but now the Gemara asks, if this is the drasha, klal prat klal, maybe we should say that we exclude from this prat klal even more. And here the Gemara is going to go through a discussion which is mamish similar to what we had about 10 blot ago. So the Gemara says as follows: Ima prat, shouldn't we say that just like the prat, what's specified in the pasuk, With footish, it's clear. What are we talking about? It mentions here the animals, a shoir and a chamoyer. So what's the halacha regarding these animals? Davar, this is something shenivlasei metame b'maga b'masa, that the dead carcass of a shoir or a chamoyer, it will make you tamei whether you touch it or carry it. So maybe if I'm comparing other animals to this, I should say, I've called Davishan of Lasim Etamba B'maga B'masa, that maybe I learn out that has to be similar to this prat, only something which you become tamei if you touch or carry. But by birds, where the halacha regarding birds is that loy, over there, maybe since the halacha is that you don't become tamei from a bird unless you eat it, not if you touch it or carry it. So maybe if a bird is not similar to the prat, and over there the halacha of paying knas, if you steal someone's birds, someone's chickens, or whatever the birds may be, maybe you shouldn't have to pay knas. Says the Gemara, I could even think to say this, that maybe we should compare it to the shor and the chamar that are only metame b'maga b'masa. But the pasuk also mentions salma, a garment, and regarding that you pay knas as well. By a garment, you don't have this limitation of metame b'maga b'masa, and not like by birds, which are metame only ba'achila. So if you see that the Torah says by the salma that kefil applies, for sure it should apply to a bird as well. So the Gemara says, no, the question is a question. So Amri, they said, Anan bebalechayim kamrinan. We're focusing on the prat that the pasuk wrote regarding animals. Eime, we should say like this, bebalechayim, regarding the details of shor and chamor that the pasuk specifies. And so over here I should say, davish and v'losim metame b'maga b'masa in, if it's a dead carcass which you become tamei if you touch it or carry it, there kefil applies. Davish and v'losim metame b'maga b'masa loy. But a dead carcass of a bird, which does not make you tamei by just touching it or carrying it, the halacha of kefil should not apply. You're going to tell me, but it says salma. It shows you that it includes more even than just this dead carcass. So I'll tell you that no, we darshan it separately. Since the Torah specifies so many different pratim over here, so I look at each one of these klal prat klals separately. It's as if the Torah writes the klal prat klal separately regarding shor v'chamayr. Then it writes the klal prat klal separately regarding salma. It's not all one klal prat klal. It's darshan separately. So regarding shor and chamayr, we should exclude an oif that's not similar regarding the halacha of tumah. So therefore, this is still a question. So the Gemara says no. If this is the way you would learn this, so then you still have something extra here. Even regarding the balechayim, even if you want a darshan, the klal prata klal regarding balechayim separately, but why does the Torah mention two balechayim? It mentions the shor and the chamoyer. So the fact that it mentioned two, so there's something extra here. So we say that we're not so specific regarding how it has to be doime to the prat, to say even regarding the halacha of tomeh. No, we say that as long as it's doime, that it's a dava metaltal, v'gufay mamin, the halacha of kefil applies. But the Gemara asks on this, no, the fact that it writes shor and chamoyer, you can't say that there's something extra here to say that I include even the birds. Why? Because there would actually be a svara to say, if it wouldn't repeat, it's right separately, shor and chamoyer, I would make a mistake and say that maybe it has to be similar to the prat with another restriction, with another limitation. What is that? So the Gemara explains. Hi nichtav rachmana. What are you suggesting? Which one could the Torah write alone? Ikas or rachmana shoir. If the Torah would just write the prat of shoir, and you would say that it has to be similar to the ox, then maybe I would say there's a bigger restriction here. The reason the Torah is specifying an ox is because it could be brought as a carbon on the mizbeach. But something that can't be brought on the mizbeach is not included in this halacha of kefil. So it can't just write shred alone. I have to write chamoyer, which cannot be brought on the mizbeach, and kefil applies there as well. On the other hand, because of rachmana chamoyer, if the Torah would only write a donkey, so then hava mina, you know what's unique about a donkey? That kadosh b'bechayra, that this donkey, it has the kedusha of a bechayra. The whole halacha of petach chamoyer applies to a donkey, and that's why the halacha of kefil applies here. So kadosh b'bechayra in, shen kadosh b'bechayra loy. So all other animals, which would include a shayr as well, or whatever other animals the halacha of bechayr applies, could apply, and if not, not. So that's why it's writing chamoyer. So the Torah had to write shayr and chamoyer to let you know that no, it's not only something which is brought to the mizbeach. It's not only something which has a kedusha of bechayr. So we can't say though that from this repetition of Shoyer and Chamayr we add birds as well. So our question still remains, maybe we should say if you steal a bird, there's no halacha of kefil. So the Gemara says, Omri, they added, but they answer to this, Im Kain, Nichtav Rachman Shoyer v'Chamayr. We explained why it has to say both Shoyer and Chamayr, but Sel Omri. Why does it have to mention Sel, a sheep? Shema Minol Asuyayfis. That's still extra, and that's coming to say that even by birds is kefil. But the Gemara asks on this still, the fact that it says sheep, maybe I could say, Lasuye oifis tahirim dum yedeseh. Maybe I should say that it's only coming to add oifis that are tahir, the tahir birds, the kosher birds. And why? Because they are specifically compared to a sheep. In what way? The metame begodim abeis abliyah. That when a person, as we just mentioned before regarding birds, you don't become tummy when you touch it or carry it, but you do become tummy when you eat it. And when we eat it, the person becomes tummy, and the garments that he's wearing becomes tummy. So in that sense, it's similar to the sheep, which also becomes tummy then. But the halacha regarding non-kosher birds is that the less put tumah. Over there, when there's a dead carcass of a non-kosher bird, there's no halacha of tumah by it at all. Even if it's in your mouth when you're eating it, it does not make you tummy. All right, so this is a unique thing. Rashi here brings the makkah for this from a pasuk, where the pasuk says, "Nevela utreifa lo yachal tamaba." So you learn from this that a non-kosher bird you're not allowed to eat anyways. Only a kosher bird, which becomes a nevela and a treif if it wasn't shechted properly and so on. Over there, the pasuk is saying that if you eat it, it makes you tummy. Right? So a non-kosher bird actually has less of a halacha of tummy. It does not make you tummy when you eat it. So maybe regarding this, I should say that it's not compared to a sheep, and therefore there's no halacha of paying kefil for this. So therefore,
if it's means a not kosher,
a not kosher oif that is a nevela now, and if you have it in your beis abliya, if you swallow it, it does not make you tummy. So that should be excluded from the halacha of kefil. So now the Gemara answers loi, or there's another girsa here that adds ella, because ella means the Gemara now is retracting. It's having charata from the whole drasha that it said before. Until there we were saying that we're learning all of this out from the klal, prat, uklal. But now the Gemara says no. Kol ribuyehu. Since in the pasuk of here it says al kol dvar pesha, the word kol shows me that I do not darshan this as a klal prat klal. Rather, I darshan this as a ribui miyat ribui. What happens when you darshan ribui miyat ribui? You marbe everything. You marbe not only ke'ena prat, you even marbe something which is not similar to the prat. There is something that you have to exclude. The Gemara will soon explain what we exclude, but because it says kol, it shows that here we don't darshan klal prat klal. You have to be marbe even a non-kosher bird for kefil as well. Okay, so what comes out of it here? Even though usually you do darshan klal prat klal, but in this case, because it says kol, we don't. We darshan a ribui, that we're marbe more. So the Gemara brings another example for this and asks, is that true that anytime the Torah adds the word kol, even though you should darshan klal prat klal, but by the addition of the word kol, that shows that you don't, you marbe more. Ribuyu, so you darshan with a ribui and not klal prat klal. Oh, we have the same thing by Meiser. This is Meiser Sheni, the money of Meiser Sheni that a person exchanged from the fruits of Meiser Sheni. And he brings that to Yerushalayim. And the pasuk specifies clearly what he should use the money for, what he should buy to eat from that money in Yerushalayim. Yichsiv, kol. There the pasuk also says the word kol. But nevertheless, we still darshan it as a klal prat klal. The Tanya, as it says in the Braise, the pasuk says regarding this money of Ma'aseh Sheni, even esata hakesev b'chol hashetava nafshecha. So first the pasuk says a klal. You can use that money and buy with it whatever your heart desires. That's a klal. Then it says babaka, batzarim, bayayin, basheichar, sheep, cattle, or wine, beer, prat. It specifies all these things. And then it says u'b'chol hasheteshalcha nafshecha, whatever your heart desires. Again, chazav v'kola. So it says a klal again, klal, a prat, a klal. So how do we darshan here? Yetadan alakana prat. We learn from here that you can buy with the money of Ma'aseh Sheni only things that are similar to what was specified here. What is the similarity? Ma prat mefurish pri mipri. In the details mentioned in the pasuk has to be a pri mipri. So what this means is when you have an item that comes from another, whether like an animal, one is born from another, or whether wine or beer, the wine comes from the grapes, or the beer comes from dates, let's say. It's something that one thing that comes from another. It's one detail that we see here. And also the geduli karka has to be something that either literally grows from the ground or something that gets fed from the ground, like an animal. It doesn't grow from the ground, but it gets fed from the ground. Avkol primi pri geduli karka. That's what you could buy from the money of Ma'aseh Sheni. That's how we darshan here. Now, even though the pasuk there says kol, and we don't say that kol is a riboy that you can buy other kinds of foods as well, other kind of junk food that's not included in this example here. So we see here that even though it says kol, we still darshan a klal prat a klal. So they want to give two answers. Omri, so one answer is there's a difference. Bakol klolo, kol ribuya. When it says here bakol, so then that's just part of the klal. That's not an extra ribuy. B'chol hashatav nafshecha is part of the klal, and we still darshan klal prat the klal. But when it says kol, like it says regarding kefil, al kol dar pesha, that kol means every. That's actually a klal, and that's a ribui, and that shows that we do not darshan a klal prat the klal. It's one answer.
Right?
It's a different word. Bakol and kol. It's two different words, different understanding. Or another answer is kol klolahu. The truth is, even when the Torah writes kol in this context of a klal prat klal, we would still darshan a klal prat klal. Miu kol the hacha ribuyuhu. However, over here, there's a reason why we're saying that the kol that it says here is coming to be marbe more than a regular klal prat klal. Why is that? So here the Gemara is going to point out that that the place where this klal prat klal is written is totally extra. Mechti, why? Because let's see. Ksiv mei kara. Earlier in that pasuk, what does it say? So here, what we were quoting until here was in pasuk ches. This is in Perek Chav Beis pasuk ches, where it describes what happened to this item that this person is guarding. But then in pasuk vav before, when the Torah describes the person that gave over the item for this person to safeguard, what does it say earlier there in the pasuk? So ksiv mei kara klal prat klal. There's already a klal prat klal earlier in the pasuk when it talks about there what kind of an item are we talking about? Because the pasuk says ki yiten ishol reyeyu. If you give to your friend something to safeguard, so that's a klal. You give whatever you give. Then it says details, kesef ekelim, either money or a utensil. That's a prat, it specifies. Then it says lishmar, to guard, hodav kolal. So it says a klal. So right at the beginning, when it talks about this whole story, it starts off with a klal, prat, a klal. Now, v'yisal kedaitach. Haya kol dvar pesha nami leklal pratu dasa. That here in the pasuk afterwards, or in two psukim afterwards, when it mentions more details, it's also a continuation, and it's also a klal prat klal as well. So if so, nichtav rachmane lahani prati gabe ha'ech klal prat. Why doesn't the Torah write these details that it says here? It should have been already included in the previous klal prat klal. So all these details that it says here, shar, chamar, se, and salma, instead of writing it in a separate pasuk of a klal prat klal, it could have said it before, right when it says kesef ay kelim. It should have stuck in right over there, kesef, kelim, shar, chamar, se, and salma. So why is it writing it separately? Al kol dvar pesha lamali. Why is it writing it this klal prat klal separately over here? Shma minari buyehu. That's the reason why here I say that the kol of this pasuk, kol dvar pesha, is coming to say not only kana prat, it's coming to say even things that are not similar to the prat, and therefore you can't question and say that maybe the bird, which is tameh, and therefore is not similar to the prat, should not be included. No, we add it and we include it based on the fact that it says kol here. Okay, but now though the Gemara says, even though we are marbe, but even after you marbe more, because it says kol, you still have to exclude something. The fact that the pasuk specifies these details, there's something that you have to be memayit. And it's not only one detail the pasuk specifies, it specifies a bunch of details here. So what are we memayit from this? So the Gemara goes back to what it said before in the Braise. In the end, we are memayit those details. Hashta da amrit kol ribuye. Now that you say that the kol is marbe more, even something that's not just ke'ena prat. So, kolhani prati lamali, the details of the pasuk does specify why do we need it? What does it come to exclude? Says the Gemara, chad lamute karka. One of the details, as we mentioned before, comes to exclude karka. V'chad lamute avodim. Another detail comes to exclude slaves. V'chad lamute shtaris. Another is if you steal shtaris, it comes to exclude all these things. That we had already clearly before in the Braise. Okay, so it comes out, even though the Braise before clearly said the expression of klal prat klal, it didn't really mean a klal prat klal. It meant that it's really a ribui, and you add even that's not included in the klal prat klal. And then we still exclude these things because the Torah specified them. But now the Gemara goes on to the other details that are mentioned here in the pasuk. What do we exclude? And this was not clear in the Braise. Salma, when the pasuk says a garment, lamute, what is that coming to exclude? Davar she'enim mesuyim. This is coming to exclude a Dov Shein and Mesuyim. Rashi's pshat for this is, a salma is a garment, a shirt, or something where a person sees and knows it and recognizes that it has a siman on it. Something that's more choshev, and therefore he has a siman for it. The halacha of paying kefil is only if you steal something that has a siman on it. If it's something that has no siman, there's no halacha of kefil. That's Rashi's pshat. But all the Rishonim ask on Rashi, why should it matter regarding the payment of the kefil, whether you steal something with a siman or without a siman? The only time we find that a siman is relevant is when there's a lost item and you're trying to identify, the owner wants to identify that it's his. So therefore, most Rishonim, Taisus here, other Rishonim say, the pshat of Dov Shein Mesuyim is, if you steal something that's not specific, you stole a wallet and you don't know the specific amount of what it is, so then you don't pay knas for it. You don't pay kefil. If the person comes and swears, we had before that the owner of this wallet would come and swear how much money was in it, and you'll have to pay that amount. But if you steal a Dov Shein Mesuyim where it's not specified what it is, for that there's no payment of kefil. That's the pshat that most Rishonim say. Now the pasuk continues and says, "I'll call aveda." What do we add from this? I'll call aveda. Look at Rab Chiya bar Abba. Rab Chiya bar Abba, Rab Yechanan, hatayin, tayin is ganev ba'aveda. That this halacha of stealing, which is not only when you steal, but also when you have an item that you're safeguarding. And here, an aveda, you're keeping someone's aveda until you find the right owner. And now the right owner comes and wants it back, and you claim that someone stole it from you. In such a case, Mashalom Tashlumi Kefil. You're no different than a Ganev, and you pay Kefil here as well. That's Al Kol Aveda. Shanav Al Kol Aveda Sheyi Omar. If a person comes and claims that he stole, that it got stolen from him and he really stole it, so you pay Kefil for that as well.
It's not a miyat.
No. So this Al Kol Aveda is actually coming to add, that by an Aveda as well, there's a halach of Kefil. Yeah. Okay, now here the Gemara will come back and bring the source of the point that we started off over here with, or it said in the beginning of the Gemara of Samach Beis, that this halach of paying kefil is not only regarding stealing literally, but it's also regarding a person that was a shomer and he claimed that it got stolen, but really he stole it himself. So when that's found, when you see that he's the ganav, he has to pay kefil then as well. Tanan also, so there's a Mishnah there in Masechta Bava Metzia that says, if the owner of this item that gave you something to guard, and comes and asks you, "Hey, Pikdaini, where is my item that I gave you?" Amalei. So the shomer answers and says, "Avad, I lost it." So the owner says, "Mashbiyachani, I want you to swear for me that it got lost." And v'amar amen. And the person says, "Amen." He accepts. He swears that it got lost. Okay, so we're talking here about a shomer chinam that only has a responsibility to pay back for negligence. So after he swears that it got lost, so he just swore that he's pater. Then what happened? Then witnesses come along and testify that he ate it himself. He's the one that stole it. In such a case, Mashalom is sakeren. All he's going to have to pay for this is what he ate himself, what he stole himself, not more than just a keren, the principle itself. However, in a case of hoide al piatzmai, after he swore falsely that it got lost, and it turns out that he ate it himself, he was made himself to this. In such a case, Mashalom keren v'chaimish v'asham. He pays not only the principal, but he also pays an additional fifth of the value of this, and also has to bring a carbon asham. As she brings over here, we learn out from the psukim that this halacha that you pay, the added fifth and the carbon, is not when Adam come, only if you will made yourself to this. Okay, that's one case. So here the point of this case was that what did the person claim happened to the item? That it got lost. Now the Gemara says, what's if the shomer's claim was different? This is all part of that Mishnah there. Heicham Pikdaini, the owner comes and says, "Where's my item?" Amaloi, and he answers, "Nignav." It got stolen. Not that it got lost. It got stolen. Mashbiyachani. So the owner says, "Swear to me that it got stolen." V'ama amen, and he swears, amen is a shvur that he swears that it got stolen. Now, so if Adam come forward and say he's the one that stole it, in such a case, Mashalom Tashlumi Kefil. So you're just like a ganev, and you pay kefil as well. So this halacha that you're going to be just like a ganev is not only by the ganev, but even by a person that's toyin as ganev. But only if you're toyin as ganev, not if you claim that it got lost. Now, in such a case, if you admitted yourself that you stole it and it didn't get stolen from you, mishalim keren v'chaimish v'asham, you pay the keren and an additional fifth and the asham, but you don't pay the kefil. Once you made it yourself, that knas of kefil you don't pay. Okay, the chaimish and the asham you pay, or the asham is that's a kapara, and the chaimish is also a kapara, that you still pay, but not the kefil, because once you made it yourself, we have the klal, made it and a knas is pater. Okay, says the Gemara, Katani Miyeh, what do we see in this Mishnah, as we started off in the whole sugya, that B'toyin, Tain is Ganev, that not only by a Ganev, but even if you claim that it got stolen from you, and you're the Ganev, the Mishal, Tashlumi Kefil, you pay Kefil as well. But that's only if you claim that it got stolen from you. Avul B'toyin, Tain is Avad, if you were a Shaimer, and you claim that it got lost, and then it turns out that you stole it, Loi Mishal, Tashlumi Kefil. In such a case, you don't pay Kefil. Okay, now another detail you'll learn out from this Mishnah. Even in a case where you tained that it got stolen from you, and it turns out that you're the ganev, when do you pay kefil? If you swore falsely that it got stolen from you, and you wanted to pati yourself, then you pay the kefil. Without swearing falsely, you don't pay kefil. That's what you see over there clearly in the pasuk. It says, Rashi brings here the pasuk. It says over there that he comes to the bezdin and he swears, it's only with a shvua. Okay, the Gemara itself is going to dash on its own. Sorry, the Gemara is going to dash on this all. That's what the Gemara is going to bring here now. What's the source of all this? The Gemara is asking, the Gemara is not, that's not a kasha. The Gemara wants to know, mino hanemili. The Gemara is saying that there's two details that you see over here in this braise. Oh, it's not actually a braise, it's a mishnah. You see over here that there's halacha of kefil by toy and tain is ganev, and if you made a shvua. So what's the source of this?
The kasha we just said that.
No. The Aveda is something else. When a person is a shomer over the Aveda, that's it. By there, when the person is the shomer over the Aveda, over there it's going to be the same thing. The shomer over that Aveda, if he tainus ganev for that Aveda, he'll be chayiv to pay kefil. If he tainus ovad on that Aveda, he'll be potter from kefil. So Menah and Amelia, what's the source for this? The Tan Rabbana. So we learned in our Braisa, and here the Gemara actually brings two different Braises that bring the psukim about this, and there's actually an argument in these two Braises of how you understand these psukim. You have here the psukim on the side of the Gemara if you want to see to get clear over here what we're talking about. So first is the pasuk that says, Im yumotza ganev, if you find the ganev, so then what does the pasuk say? Yishalem shnaim, you pay twice. Okay, that's in pasuk vav there. So it says the Braise, what is that pasuk talking about? It doesn't mean that a ganev literally pays kefil, but rather it's talking about betoyin tain is ganev akasim medaber. We're talking about an object that you're guarding, and then you tain it that it got stolen, and then you're the one that stole it. You pay kefil. That's what this pasuk is talking about. So the Braise asks, if you're saying that this pasuk is speaking about a person that claimed that it got stolen, maybe this pasuk, when it says im yemotzi haganev, means literally you find a ganev. Says the pasuk, it says the Braise that is no. When it says there in the pasuk, and this is in the next pasuk actually, in pasuk Zayin there, the pasuk says im lo yemotzi haganev. If you don't find the ganev, so what is that pasuk talking about? There, it also says that you're going to have to pay. So what is that pasuk talking about? B'toyin tainas ganev. Over there, it's not talking about where you have a ganev himself, but you're talking about a shomer that's toyin tainas ganev, hakasav medaber. So just like the pasuk im lo yimotzei ganev is talking about toyin tainas ganev in pasuk Zayin, so to the previous pasuk in pasuk Vav, when it says yimotzei ganev, it's also talking about toyin tainas ganev. Okay, that's one braisa. Now, the Gemara is soon going to explain if both of these psukim are talking about the same thing, toy and tainas ganev. Why do I need two psukim to say that you pay kefil in both, repeating the same thing? But now there's another braisa that argues and actually says that one pasuk is talking about an actual ganev, as it sounds like. Yimotzi ganev is an actual ganev, and lo yimotzi ganev is talking about the shomer that claimed it got stolen, and then he stole it. Let's see. So Tanya Yidach, another Braisa, it says, Im Yimotzi Ganev. When it says Yimotzi Ganev, that's Beganev Atzma, Kosim Medaber. That pasuk is talking about the Ganev himself. Atoim Beganev Atzma, you're saying it's talking about the Ganev himself that has to pay kefil. Or Yein Ele B'toyin Tainas Ganev. Maybe it's talking about a shomer that claimed that it got stolen from him. So this Braisa says the opposite. Later, the next pasuk says, if you don't find the Ganev, Hare Toyin Tainas Ganev Omer. So that pasuk is talking about a person that claimed that it got stolen. So I don't need the same thing twice. When it says if the Ganev is found, that's talking about the Ganev himself. That's this Braisa. Okay, the Gemara will explain the machlekes between these two Braisas. But first the Gemara explains the Kula Alma Miyas, what you see over here, according to both of these Braisas, Im Lo Yimotza Ganev, when the pasuk says the words Im Lo Yimotza Ganev, B'toyin Tainas Ganev Ksiv, this pasuk is talking about a shomer that claimed that it got stolen from him. My mashma. How do you see this in the pasuk that it's speaking about a person that's tiny that it got stolen from him? Amar Rav. So Rav explains, well, you see it in the words, because what is the pasuk saying? Im lo yimotze kama she'amar. If it's not going to be found that it's true, like he said, that there's a ganav here, ella rather, shehu atzmai ganvai, he himself stole this, then yishalem shnayim, then he has to pay kefil. Right? Because this is in pasuk zayin it says, im lo yimotze ganav. Right? And then in pasuk ches it continues to say yishalem shnayim. If you don't find the ganav, so then why are you paying kefil? The ganav wasn't found. So the Gemara says, no, the mashmas here is, if you didn't find to be true like he said, rather he himself stole it, then you pay double. That's the mashmas of the pasuk that is talking about tayin tainas ganav. That's one detail. Now, minol on the bishvua, how do you know that what the pasuk is saying, that you pay doubly, shalom shnayim, is only when you swore falsely? So, because the Tanya, in another brayse, it explains, in this pasuk itself, it says, v'nikrav balabayis elo alekim, that you come to the bezdin. What does this mean? It means l'shvua, that you're swearing falsely. Atoim l'shvua, you say coming to elakim, which is the bezdin, means for a shvua, oyein elo l'din. Maybe it just means that you're coming to the din Torah, but you didn't swear falsely. So we say for that no. Nema shlichus yad lamata, v'nema shlichus yad lamayla. There's the halacha of the shomer that touched the item that he's guarding. That's what shlichus yad means. And shlichus yad is mentioned over here in this pasuk. This is in pasuk zayin. It says Loi shalach yodem imalechas re'eyu, and it says shlichus yad in a later pasuk as well. Ma'ala halon l'shvua. There it's writing the halacha of shlichus yad that you have to swear that you didn't touch this item, and then you won't be responsible for it. Avkan l'shvua. So here as well, it means that you made a shvua. Okay, so therefore we see we're talking about tayin tainas ganav with a shvua, and that's when you pay kefil. Okay, but now the Gemara comes back to the machlokes of the two braises. One braise said that both psukim are talking about tayin tainas ganav. The other braise said one pasuk is talking about the ganav himself, and the other pasuk is talking about tayin tainas ganav. So the Gemara says, Bishleim laman domar. According to the second brayse, it said chad beganav. One pasuk is talking about the ganav, chad betayin tainas ganav, and another pasuk is talking about the case where you claim that it got stolen. That's why it says two different psukim. El laman domar tavai betayin tainas ganav. But according to the first brayse that we quoted, so it said that both, when it says lo yimatza ganav and when it says yimatza ganav, both of them is talking about when it's a shomer that's claiming that it got stolen. So Trei Kroi Lamali, why do we need two psukim? So Amri, they answered for this. Chad lemuute tainas avad. The extra pasuk is coming to say that this whole halacha of a shomer that has to pay kefil is only if that is his claim to pater himself was that it got stolen. But if his claim to pater himself was that it got lost, then if it's discovered that you stole it, you don't pay kefil. That's the additional pasuk. It's coming to exclude this case. Says the Gemara, according to the other brayse that says chad beganav, chad betayin tainas ganav, that the two psukim, one is the ganav himself and one is the tayin tainas ganav. So deloi miyater, so you don't have this extra pasuk here to say lemute tainas ava to exclude a case where a person claims that it got lost. So minole, from where does he learn out this halacha? So the answer is miganav. The pasuk could have said the word ganav, but it says haganav with an extra hey. So haganav means to say only if you claimed gneva, not if you claimed that it got stolen. So the extra hey. Now lamanda omar, according to the other opinion, tarvayu betoyin tainas ganav, that both psukim are talking about a person that claims geneva. So demiyetle tayin tainas ona avad, he already has an extra pasuk to say to exclude that if your taina was that it got stolen, that there's no kefil ganev haganev my dodishbe. The extra hay of the haganev, what is yidashin from this? Amalach will answer you. There's a drasha that Rabbi Barabba said. Hatayin tainas ganev. This case we're talking about the shomer that's tayin tainas ganev b'pikadin, regarding this pikadin that he has, not only mishal tashlumi kefil but also tovachul machar. If this shomer now went and slaughtered it or he sold it, mishal tashlumi Bava Kama, you pay 4 or 5 times as much. So from the extra hay of haganev, it comes to say that he's mamish like the ganev, not only for kefil, but also for our Bava Kama. That's the extra hay. So now the Gemara asks, according to the other opinion, from where do you know this? Lamanda Amar, or Ulamanda Amar, chad beganev, chad betoyin tainas ganev. The other opinion that says that one pasuk is going on the ganev literally, and the other pasuk is going on tayin tainas ganev. Now the high ganev, haganev, so the extra hay We already dashed it for something else. Afke lamute tainis avad. We use that extra hay to say that when the claim was that it got lost, that there you don't pay kefil. So the Rab Chia Barabe minole. From where does he know this is the Rosh of Rab Chia Barabe, that this person that claims that it got stolen pays not only kefil, but he would pay our Bava Kamisha as well if he slaughtered it or sold it. From where does he dash in that? Malach will tell you hekeshahu. There's a hekesh here in the pasuk because these two psukim, when it talks about paying our Bava Kamisha, it comes right after this pasuk where it says the din of paying kefil. So since these two psukim are right near each other, there's a hekesh here. And ve'ein meshivin ala kesha. The rule is that once you have a hekesh, you can't use any svaras to try to refute this hekesh. Since these two psukim are right near each other, you can't ask any questions on this hekesh. Okay, because Rashi here says that you may want to ask a question and say regarding the ganav himself, he pays kefil because he pays kefil even without a shvua, right? So maybe that's why he also pays our Bava Chamisha. Regarding toy and tainas ganav, we just said that you only pay kefil if it was with a shvua. So maybe you shouldn't pay dalat v'hei. So, but it's a hekesh. A hekesh is a juxtaposition. I think that's the word in English. When you have two psukim that are right near each other, so we compare them. You say whenever kefil applies, the payment of Bava Chamisha applies as well, and therefore by Tainas Ganav you pay both. That's according to this opinion. Okay, 1 second. Yeah. Okay, the next thing is already continued. Yeah.